I was an ex-Muslim since I was 16, and I went through a whole phase of denying the existence of God. And one day I met Christian missionaries and I found Jesus. So I grew up Muslim. My dad is from Cairo, Egypt. My mom's from Canada. The major reason why I actually grew up in Egypt was to learn Arabic and to learn the Quran. And so I always kind of lived in two worlds, one where there was a fear of hell. And when I go to like Canada, everyone's like just neutral and no one really bothers anyone. And there were two events that really made me have to question my identity. The first one was Charlie Hebdo attacks in France, when they drew a cartoon of Mohamad and ISIS came and they killed the people who drew the cartoon. Something happened inside me. I got angry. I remember this. I was like, how dare they draw my prophet like that? They're asking to die. And I stopped myself at 15. I was like, what possessed me to think someone should be killed for simply drawing a picture? The second one was the rise of the Islamic State. I would watch their videos and see what they were saying. They would quote Hadith, they would quote Quran, they would quote the life of Muhammad, and every single thing they quoted was true. What they did to the Yazidi genocide, they did the exact same thing that Muhammad did to the 700 Jews of Banu Qurayza. And I'm reading the story and I'm looking at the news, and I knew something was wrong. At the same time, I had this friend in Egypt who was a Coptic Christian, and he would continuously tell me about Jesus. One day he asked me, and he said, Ismail, you should go to your room and ask God for a sign. So I went to my room and I'm like, God, I don't know who you are. If you're the God of the Kaaba or if you're Jesus, I need a sign. And when I went to bed, I had this dream, and I get to the middle and I look up and I see Jesus on the cross dying, and I see two other people dying beside him. And I woke up and I Googled crucifixion of Jesus, and I found out that two other people died with Jesus. No one ever taught me this before. I left Islam at 16. I was this atheist person who just lived a hedonistic life. But then I went to university and I met this Christian missionary guy. Even though I was so mean to them, they showed me so much love. One day, one of the Christians shared the story of the prodigal son with me. And he says, my son was lost and now he's found. And I start crying my eyes out. He said, that's what God's love is like to us. Eventually, they invited me to Thanksgiving dinner, and they were singing songs to God and praising God. And I looked around the room, and they're talking. They're talking to God like he's in the room with us. And I had two conclusions. Either everyone did drugs, or this is real. I sat down silently, and I said, Jesus, if you're real, I want to feel this right now. And as soon as I said those words, something just entered my body, which I now know is the Holy Spirit. And then it just exploded everywhere. And I literally jumped up and I started crying because I felt him. He answered me. I left that house a changed man.